Hello everyone, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and it seems like no matter how much I plan for technology, we always have a little technology issue, but I am here. I'm on about 5 minutes late than usual, and we are on our Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. This is our weekly Q&A. We usually have a reminder that posts in the morning to remind you to post questions, and that did not, anyway, technology issues today, so I wonder what's going on astrologically. But anyway, it's interesting because I was actually hoping that there wouldn't be a lot of questions. I was hoping there's one topic that I want to talk about. If we have questions, that's fine too. I'm happy to answer any questions for you all about psychic protection and energetic sensitivity and all of that. So, what I want to talk to you all about today is so I want to talk to you about spells and incantations and rituals and how, like, why they work and how they work. And I want to dispel some of your worries about them. So, hey, Anne, good to see you. And it's interesting because usually we have a really big group in here, and we don't today. That's interesting. So, no worries, because I was hoping to just kind of talk on and on about this one topic. So it works out perfectly. So, some of you who are dealing with psychic protection issues where you're wanting to use some kind of a ritual or a spell. So you're wanting to use a particular spiritual process to help release that psychic attack or whatever that spiritual issue is. Now, some of you are reaching toward that because that's aligned with your spiritual faith. Maybe you are practicing pagan or some other, whatever. There's a million different religions out there, but so like maybe doing spell work is automatically aligned with your faith, and so that's why you're reaching for it. For other people who are coming from maybe a more like mainstream background or a non-religious background, either way, when you're having these really challenging psychic protection issues, sometimes you come across that some solutions could involve doing a spell or doing some kind of ritual in order to resolve the issue. So what I really want to talk to you all about is like, so I'm not going to give you any spells today. What I want to talk to you about is how, like, why that kind of thing works, okay? And I also, before I even get into that, what I want to say is that there's a lot of fear-based teachings out there in Christianity and in other mainstream religions. A lot of fear-based teachings that like a spell is, so like any kind of spell work is like from the devil and it's evil. And I just want to tell you that that's not necessarily true. That, you know, it's my observation that spiritual practices all across the board can be used for either good or evil. So they can be used to help or harm. So the only way that you're really going to get into hot water is if you are practicing any kind of a ritual in order to cause harm towards someone. Okay, so so I want to encourage you to release any fear about, like, if the word spell work is a trigger for you, I encourage you to release any fear about that and just think of it as a group of actions that you're taking or a prayer that you're saying in order to activate something. You can even, so here's the thing. We say the words, we think, like when I say the word spell work or spell, a magical spell, you probably imagine someone like using herbs or like chopping up something, like chopping up a root, or like burning a certain candle, or using an oil and saying something, right? You probably have certain things, certain ideas that you've developed over watching movies, Hollywood version of magic. Like, so yeah, it's not totally accurate, but it's but there's some truth there. And the truth is that the person is taking physical actions, they're manipulating physical things, and they're speaking words. So there are a lot of examples in like even mainstream religions of manipulating physical objects and speaking words. And so if you're afraid of the word spell work, think of the fact that in Christian traditions, there are prayers and rituals done. There are candles lit. Like, it's all the same. It's just different vocabulary words, right? It's still the same. Saying prayers and lighting candles. It's all a ritual process for bringing something into being. Even practicing the law of attraction, there are a lot of people who will create a vision board and then state an affirmation and maybe even light a candle. That is spell work. Whether you want to call it spell work or you want to call it manifestation work or whatever, it's all the same thing, okay? So all of it's the same, whether it's spell work or using, saying a novena, saying a rosary a bunch of times, focusing on the intent that you want to be freed from a psychic attack or to get a promotion at your job or whatever. Like, it's all the same. It's focused intent and using words and physical actions and physical objects to focus your intent. Okay? So I actually didn't make any notes before I started, which is probably pretty obvious. But I just wanted to kind of talk around this topic a little bit. I know I'll have clients and students who are dealing with really troubling psychic protection issues. They want to make sure that they're protected, and they will maybe read somewhere online, or even in my program, there's some suggestions that I give about some ritual work. And what I've noticed, so I tend to keep the ritual work very simple, or whatever you want to call it, manifesting work, candle magic, whatever you want to call it. I tend to keep it very simple. In my book, I keep it really simple. In my program, I keep it really simple. The material that I give to my students, it's all really, I keep it simple. That's how I do it. Some people like a lot of steps. And if you're someone who likes things to be elaborate, if it's more believable to you that there are 30 steps and you have to say things, you have to say this really long thing and use all of these really hard to find objects, if that makes it more believable to you, then do it that way. But what I'm really saying is that it's all about what you believe, what's believable to you. So what is believable to you? So for me, I've always been able to really focus my intent without having the need for a whole bunch of other stuff. I've always been the type that I can light a candle, I can focus my intent, and I can be like, make it so. Like, that's how I am. I give more steps than that in my program, but you don't really need all of the extra steps. But a lot of people do need those physical actions. They need to go through, like, drawing this symbol and then, calling in the directions and doing this step and that step and using this herb and like these 20 steps, right? Some people need that kind of as, well, I'm going to use the word crutch, but I don't mean it in a bad way. Like a splint, right? As a supporter, because all of our minds work differently. Nobody's better or worse. It's just different. Some of us are able to have like a non-structured way of working, and some people need structure. So you need to have an elaborate spell or an elaborate ritual in order to release some kind of psychic attack or initiate a protection protocol for yourself. So just honor how you are, right? If you need those steps, use them. There's some candle work that I recommend for certain circumstances. And one of my students, she emailed me and she said, well, I went into this metaphysical shop and the metaphysical shop owner said, oh, no, you have to do these 10 extra steps or it won't work for you. And I just laughed. I was like, okay, it's okay. She's trying to help you. She really wants to help you, and that's okay. She's coming from a good place. But she's also coming from a place of her own dogma related to her particular spiritual practice. I think it was some hoodoo practice. And I have respect towards everything. I use a little bit of everything. So this is not bashing her or anything at all. I know she was trying to help. But what I explained to my student is that, it was really, her advice was really coming from her personal, well, the dogma that comes from the faith, the religious practices that she is a part of. And so she believes very strongly in that particular spiritual faith. And so that is what works for her. So she needs, the shop owner needs those steps. Okay. But my student, I was explaining to her, that's not your religion. I mean, you can choose to follow those steps, but don't freak out and think that a simpler process won't work for you, because it can. Just remember, it's all about what you believe, because part of sending out a clear intent, sending it out, is about also tapping into your subconscious mind. And so one of the ways that you tap into your subconscious mind is by utilizing, any tools that you believe in. So if you were raised in the Judaic tradition, and you still feel like you have a lot of imprinting from that, then you might do better using some kind of a ritual practice connected with that, with some of the prayers of your upbringing, for example. Or maybe you were raised in another tradition and, some other type of ritual resonates with you. Okay, I think you get it. So there's a couple of key points here. Number one, it's really not that much about the steps. It's about you believing. Okay? So it's not necessarily about the exact steps or supplies. It's about whether you believe in it or not. So that's the most important intent. That's the most important point that I want to give you. You don't have to get really complicated with things. You can if you want to. Okay. Hey, Zahira, good to see you. And Audrey, we've got a smaller group today, and that's totally fine. Let me think if there's anything else that I want to say. Okay. So I know I kept saying that the details of certain rituals are not that important. I'm just going to totally contradict myself now and say yes and no. Okay. So like when I see a ritual in a book or online, And it's pretty easy. I think it's pretty easy to tell if if it was written by the author, and that's the author's ritual that they've written based on some of their beliefs and what works for them, what works in their own conscious and subconscious mind, right? If that's the case, you would probably do better to take inspiration and ideas from what you've read from that author and then change it and make it your own. Change it and make it your own. You need to make it your own so it's more believable for you. And if that means making it simpler, or if that means making it more complex, or if that means tweaking it a little bit, whatever, do that to make it your own. Now, there are some books out there, and these are not typically your beginner level books, but there are some books on magic and rituals out there that include spells that are very traditional and very old, that have been based on years and years and years of practice and years and years and years of people doing that same spell and doing that same process. If you are to come across something like that, just know that if you were to do it exactly as the traditional ritual states, you would be it could be more powerful, because you would be calling upon not only your own conscious mind and subconscious and all of your energy, but you would also be tapping into all of the energy and intent of all of the people who have used that ritual before. Okay, so like I said, most of the time, take a ritual and make it your own. But and all of the details don't matter. If somebody is recommending a whole bunch of complicated steps, don't worry about that. But if you do go into deeper studies, so this is probably not going to happen if you are, really at beginner level and just buying like your average books off of Amazon or whatever. But if you get into deeper esoteric studies, if you get into those deeper esoteric studies, then you might start to find some of those older rituals. And so keep in mind that you might not want to mess with changing those around. I really wouldn't recommend that you get into doing getting into any of that deeper esoteric stuff unless you have a teacher or some kind of mentor who's going to help you with that, because some of that spell work can be super powerful. The kind of spell work that I'm talking about is like, I'll give an example. Your basic candle magic. So using a particular color of candle, blessing the candle in a certain way with a certain intent, and then doing some other steps to activate the intent of the candle, and then lighting the candle for a certain length of time. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that would be an example of a spell, and using physical objects in order to focus your intent. There's a million different kinds of spells out there, and those would be actually beyond the scope of what I'm going to go into here. But I just wanted to, the main thing that I wanted to do was explain how they work, how spells work, why they work, and in my opinion, my professional opinion, why most of the time it's not important to get too tied up in the details of following certain ritual steps. The thing is if you are looking up a ritual, if you're looking up a binding ritual, for example, how to stop someone from taking negative action towards you, you're going to find thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of different binding rituals online and in different books. You go into metaphysical stores, and the shop owners and the employees are all going to tell you their own as well. You see what I mean? So if you're going out and asking for advice, don't get too freaked out if you're getting different advice. right? Because that's why. Everybody just has their own ideas. So, if you haven't explored any kind of ritual work, any kind of ritual magic, any kind of spell work, whatever word you want to use, depending, like whatever word is most comfortable and doesn't activate fear thoughts for you. I encourage you to try some of it. So remember I said, a ritual like this could be like creating a vision board, like cutting out pictures from a magazine and posting them on a poster board. Like that's magical work. That's using physical action and then focusing on your intent as you're doing it. That is focusing your intent in order to bring something into reality. So it's actually not as complicated as you might think. We do that kind of work all the time. We just don't call it spell work. We just don't necessarily call it magic, but it really is. So those are my 2 cents for today. I know we had some regulars who joined and joined late, so I encourage you to go back and listen from the beginning. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I will be back here next Monday. I'm on most Mondays at 6 p.m. Central to answer your questions and talk. Today I kind of just rambled and just shared my thoughts that have been on my mind about this topic. So I hope that it was helpful. I hope that it made a bit of sense. Anyway, for those who are new to me, just want you to know that you can get more information about the work that I do, one-on-one sessions and programs at my website, www.psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And until next time, see you later, and sending you lots of love and empowerment.